Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at Grammar Exercise 1 from Chapter 22 of the Road to Latin textbook. Now, like I tell you in these grammar videos, if you haven't already, the first thing you really got to do is make sure you've gone through the grammar yourself, you've read through it all, you've taken some pretty good notes. This chapter is all on third IO verbs, so read through it. And if you want help with any of that, feel free to take a look at my website. You can find all my notes there, videos, examples, just things to try to help you through it. But you do want to feel really good about the grammar, and you also probably want to practice by reading the story first, right? So Road to Latin is a reading method textbook. The idea is that as you read the chapter stories, you're actually working through the grammar by seeing it in context. So that should always be your other step. And in order to do that, sort of a side step is make sure you know the vocab, right? So that all ties together, knowing the vocab, reading through the grammar, then translating the stories. That's how you really practice all this stuff. And then you want to use the grammar exercises just as sort of a triple check to make sure that you understood and you feel really confident and that you can move forward and kind of out of this chapter. So if you haven't done that yet, feel free to go do it. Pause the video. Make sure that you've kind of worked your way through it on your own and you feel good about it. And then use the rest of my video just as a double check to make sure that you're on the right track. So all that being said, let's dive in and see how it goes, okay? So grammar exercise 1 starts with this. You're doing translation. So they're giving Latin verbs and you're just translating it. The first one we have is mitator, okay? Now, this is the verb mito, mitore. It's not a third IO verb, but they're not necessarily all third IO. It's just mixing in tenses, things like that. This is third person passive, and you can tell by the E in front of the ending that it's future tense. So mitator just means he, she, or it will be sent. Next, you have relinquent, right? This is relinquo, relinquere. Again, not a third IO verb, rather. And you're just looking at present tense, so it just means they leave. Now you have yakiunt, right, which comes from yakio, yakare. This is a third IO verb. It's active voice, present tense, third person plural. So it just means they throw. You can tell by the IUNT, right? That kind of gives it away as being third IO. This just means they throw. Next, you have tenemini, right? Now here you have teneo, tenere, which means to hold. This is second person plural, and it's passive voice, right? So tenemini just means y'all are being held. Now this is not future tense. You can tell because it's a second conjugation verb, right? Teneo, tenere. So that E in front of the MI and I has nothing to do with future tense. It's just present tense, right? So y'all are being held. Next, you have docetur, right? This is doceo, docere, which means to teach, right? It's passive voice, it's third person singular, it's present tense, so it's saying he, she, or it is being taught, right? That's how you want to translate it. Again, because it's a second conjugation verb and not third, that E in front of the TUR has nothing to do with the future tense, rather. It just happens to be part of the spelling of the verb. Next, you have muniemur, right? This is the verb to kind of defend or fortify. Here we have a passive voice verb, but because it's munio, munire, right? It's fourth conjugation, the E does make it future tense. Think A and 5 E's, right? This is why knowing the conjugation of your verb is so important. So muniemur means we will be defended, right? It's first person plural, passive voice, we will be defended. Next, you have custodiator. Again, custodio, custodire is a fourth conjugation verb. It would have an IRE in the infinitive. So that E in front of the TUR makes it future tense. The TUR is third person singular, passive voice. So when you put that all together, custodiator means he, she, or it will be guarded. Next, you have pugnas. This is just present tense. Pugno, pugnare means to fight. The S ending is second person singular. Active voice. Pugnas means you fight or you are fighting. Next, you have cogebatis, right? The ba gives it away as being imperfect tense. TIS is second person plural, active voice, right? And it's not anything really crazy, right? It just means you all were collected or were compelled, depending on how you want to translate it, okay? Next, you have pugnabimus. The BI gives it away as being future tense. MUS is first person plural, active voice. So when you put it all together, pugnabimus means we will fight. Next, you have faciebas. Now here we have bas, right? Bombas bot is imperfect tense. The S is active voice. It's second person singular. It just means you were doing. And lastly, we have accipieres. Now here you have a third IO verb, accipio, accipere, right? We learned it in this chapter. The E in front of the ending means it's future tense, right? Think A and 5 E's. RIS is second person singular, passive voice. So accipieres means you will be accepted, okay? So that's the first part. Hopefully that made some sense, just sort of translating your way through and making sure that you feel comfortable with it, right? The second part is slightly different. So the instructions say give the present, imperfect, and future tense in the active and passive of the following verbs in the same person and number indicated, right? A lot of instructions there. But basically, we have a number one, servo, right? Now, it's telling you to do third person singular, right? Active and passive voice in present, imperfect, and future. So we'll go in that order. So if you're doing active voice, it's servo, servare, right? It's a first conjugation verb. It would be serva, right? That just means he, she, or it saves, right? That's your present tense. To make it imperfect, it would be serwabat, right? We have the infinitive, drop the re, you add bat, and you're good. And for the future, you have serwabit, right? So serwat, serwabat, and serwabit are the present, imperfect, and future tense, active voice. On the right-hand side, we have passive. That's where we just flip the endings around. So you have serwator, serwabator, and serwabitor, right? We're just changing the T to a TUR, basically, and you have what you need, okay? And number two, same idea, but we have moneo, right? Comes from moneo, monere. And you have first person singular. So active voice is moneo, exact same thing. Then you have monebam and monebo, right? Because it's a second conjugation verb, moneo, monere, right? So we use bam, bas, bat, and then bo, bi, bi, boo, right? For future tense. To make it passive, you have moneor, monebar, and monebor, right? You're just using the R ending and changing it around, okay? For number three, you have duco, right? This is a third conjugation verb, duco, ducore. You're doing second person singular. So you have ducis, right? Then you have ducebas, and then you have duces, okay? So notice there the E in duces is what makes it future because it's third conjugation. So duces, present, duces, future. Then you have duceris, ducebaris, and duceris. And again, notice the aorist ending there. You got to really pay attention when you're doing it in future tense, okay? In number four, we have yakio, third person plural. You'd have yakiont, yakieband, and yakiend if you're doing active voice, present, imperfect, future. And on the passive side, you have yakiontor, yakiebantor, and yakientor, right? The entur makes it future. In number five, we have custodio, again, from custodire, which means to guard. You're doing first person plural, so you have custodimus, custodiebamos, and then custodiemos. The E in custodiemos is future tense. On the passive side, you have custodimor, custodiebamor, and custodiemor, right? So you're getting that that look at passive, right? The IE in future makes it, in that third ending makes it future passive. So again, just kind of follow along everything you've been learning, and you should be doing a pretty good job with these. The last one here is number six. You have winko, second person plural. You'd have winketis, right? It's winko, winkore, a third conjugation verb. So you have winketis, winkebatis, and winketis, right? The E makes it future and active. On the passive side, right, remember you have to flip your endings around. You're going to go winkimini, then winkebamini, and winkemini, right? You're just changing the ending to make it passive and following your rules for translation, right? Different tenses, okay? So hopefully that all made sense. It's not a particularly long exercise, but it is really tying together all the tenses and all the different verbs you've seen, so it's a good one to do. If you have any questions at all on anything, just put them in the comments below. Always happy to help, but otherwise keep at it, and hopefully you hit a point where what you wrote down, your answers match what I gave you, and you can feel pretty good that you're probably ready to move on. Just make sure, again, that you've read through all the grammar, you've done all the work with the story, the vocab, all that stuff. If you can kind of handle it with this, if you use my site, feel free to try some Magistrula, things like that, just to double check. That's how you know you're really ready to move on. Good luck.